People always looked twice at Mara Levin, not because she demanded attention, but because her face unsettled them. It wasn't ugliness, not truly. It was the kind of face life had rewritten too many times, a crooked line where a smile used to come easily. Eyes that carried stories no one asked to hear. Skin marked not by age alone, but by endurance. The kind of face that made strangers uncomfortable because it reminded them that suffering existed and survived. Mara had learned long ago how to lower her gaze, how to soften her voice, how to take up less space. The world rewarded silence. The world preferred women like her quiet and grateful. She lived in a small apartment on the edge of the city, the kind of place where the walls were thin, but the memories were thick. Every corner carried echoes of a life she once had, and a life she gave up. On the windowsill sat a single photograph in a faded frame, a young boy with wide eyes and a missing tooth, laughing as if the world had never hurt him. Her son, Daniel, he was everything she had left, and everything she had ever needed. Mara raised him alone. She never spoke of his father, not because she didn't remember, but because remembering cost too much. She worked jobs that broke her body and nights that broke her pride. She went hungry so he wouldn't. She smiled when teachers praised him, and cried quietly when she couldn't afford what other parents took for granted. Daniel grew up kind. That was her greatest victory. So when he called one evening, his voice bright with excitement, Mara felt something unfamiliar bloom in her chest hope. "Mom," he said, barely containing himself, "I'm engaged." Mara sat down slowly, gripping the edge of the table. "Engaged," she repeated, tasting the word. "Yes, her name is Claire. She's amazing. You'll love her." Mara smiled, though Daniel couldn't see it. "I'm happy for you," she said honestly. "When would you like me to meet her?" There was a pause, just a fraction of a second. Mara noticed. She always noticed. "Tomorrow," Daniel said quickly. "Dinner at our place." The next evening, Mara stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. She chose her best dress, the one she saved for weddings and funerals, the dark blue that almost made her eyes look gentle again. She pinned her hair back carefully, covering the thin scar near her temple. She told herself not to expect kindness, only civility. Hope was dangerous. She had learned that too. When she arrived, Claire opened the door. Claire was beautiful in the effortless way that had never known hardship. Smooth skin, perfect teeth, eyes sharp with confidence. She looked Mara up and down openly, not bothering to hide it. "Oh," Claire said, blinking. Then she laughed. It wasn't nervous laughter. It wasn't accidental. "At least you don't need a Halloween mask," she said brightly. "You're scary enough as it is." The words hit the room like broken glass. Mara felt the sting first in her chest, then in her throat. For a moment, the years collapsed into each other, the whispers, the stares, the children who once asked their parents why her face looked wrong. She stood there, holding her purse with both hands, steady as stone. Daniel laughed awkwardly. "Claire," he said, half-hearted. "Come on." Claire rolled her eyes. "I'm joking." Mara forced a small smile. "It's all right," she said softly. "I've heard worse," and she had, from strangers, from employers, from mirrors. Dinner passed in a blur of polite conversation and subtle cruelty. Claire spoke over her, corrected her, smiled with lips that never reached her eyes. Mara answered questions briefly, never once defending herself. She had spent a lifetime learning that dignity didn't come from fighting. It came from surviving. At the end of the night, Claire mentioned a family dinner the following week. "My parents are dying to meet you," she said, though her tone suggested the opposite. "They're very particular." Mara nodded. "I'll be there." She didn't know why she agreed. Maybe it was for Daniel. Maybe it was because some part of her, the part she buried years ago, felt a strange tightening in her chest at the mention of Claire's parents. Like the air before a storm, as Mara walked home alone, the city lights blurring through her tired eyes, she whispered to herself the words she had lived by for decades. Asterisk, let them laugh. Let them judge. They have no idea who you are. Asterisk, what she didn't know, what none of them knew. was that the woman they mocked, the woman they forgot, was about to step back into a past that had never truly let her go. And when it did, everything would change. The house was too bright. Mara noticed it the moment she stepped inside white walls, polished floors, soft golden lights designed to impress. Everything about Claire's parents' home whispered comfort, success, and a life untouched by loss. It was the kind of place built on certainty, on the assumption that tomorrow would always come gently. Mara wiped her shoes carefully at the door, as if she were bringing dirt into a sacred space. Claire barely acknowledged her. She floated ahead, heels clicking, already narrating the evening like a performance. "Mom, Dad, this is Daniel's mother, Mara. Not asterisk Mrs. Levin asterisk, just Mara, stripped of formality, of history." Mara inclined her head politely. Then the front room went silent. Claire's mother froze first. Her smile cracked, then disappeared altogether. The color drained from her face so quickly it was as if someone had pulled the life right out of her. Her hand flew to her chest, fingers trembling. Her father took a step back. The wineglass slipped from his hand and shattered on the marble floor. "Oh, my God," Claire's mother whispered, tears already streaming down her cheeks. Is that really you?" Mara felt it then, the old ache, sharp and familiar, like a wound that never quite healed. Her heart thudded once hard. She knew that voice. She had heard it crying into her shoulder once. She had held that woman while she begged. "Yes," Mara said quietly. "It's me." Claire laughed nervously. "Mom, Dad, what is this?" But her parents weren't looking at her. They couldn't tear their eyes away from Mara, as if seeing a ghost that refused to stay buried. "You're alive," her father said hoarsely. His knees buckled, and he sank into a chair. "After everything, we thought. You thought I was gone." Mara finished for him. "In a way I was." Daniel stared at his mother, confusion knotting his features. "Mom, what are they talking about?" Mara said nothing. "Not yet." Claire's mother stepped forward, sobbing openly now. "We looked for you for years. You disappeared. No letters, no calls. We were told you'd fallen apart." Mara asked gently. "That I couldn't handle it, that I ran." Silence answered her. Mara's gaze drifted around the room. The expensive art, the grand piano, the shelves lined with awards and photographs. Proof of a life rebuilt on a foundation she recognized all too well. "You did well," Mara said softly. "I see that." Claire's face flushed. "Someone please explain what's happening." Her mother turned to her, shaking. "Claire, this woman—" She couldn't finish. Mara finally met Claire's eyes, not with anger, with something far worse truth. "Once," Mara said, "your parents and I were inseparable. We were young, dreamers. We trusted the wrong people. When everything collapsed, someone had to take the blame." Her eyes darkened with memory. "So I did." Daniel's breath caught. "You never told me. There were things I wanted to protect you from." Mara replied. "And things no one wanted to hear." Claire's father buried his face in his hands. "We let you do it." He choked. "We watched them destroy you, and we said nothing." Mara nodded. "Yes, you did." The room felt smaller now. Heavier. Claire's voice cracked. "Destroy you how?" Mara reached up and brushed her fingers near her temple, where the scar lay hidden beneath pinned hair. "Some wounds show," she said. "Others stay buried." Claire's mother dropped to her knees. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "You saved us. You saved our future." And Mara stepped back. "I didn't come here for apologies," she said evenly. "I came because my son asked me to. Nothing more." Daniel moved to her side instinctively, as if sensing, for the first time, how much she carried alone. His hand hovered near hers, unsure, reverent. The past had walked in uninvited, settled itself at the table, and refused to be ignored. And for the first time in decades, the people who once turned away from Mara Levin were finally forced to look at her. Not as a joke, not as something frightening, but as the woman who had paid the price for all of them. The air in the room felt brittle, as though one wrong word would shatter it completely. Claire stood frozen between her parents and the woman she had mocked. Her perfect world suddenly tilted off its axis. She opened her mouth, closed it again. For the first time since Mara had met her, Claire had nothing clever to say. "What do you mean you took the blame?" Claire finally asked, her voice unsteady. "For what?" Mara remained standing, her posture straight despite the weight pressing on her shoulders. She hadn't planned to speak. The past was something she carried quietly, like an old injury that flared only in the cold. But the truth, once stirred, demanded air. Years ago, she began, they had all worked together, young professionals, idealistic, reckless with trust. A project that promised everything: money, recognition, a future. But when things went wrong, when documents vanished and accusations surfaced, someone had to be sacrificed to protect the rest. "And you let it be her," Claire said slowly, looking at her parents. Her father nodded, tears streaking his face. "If the truth had come out, everything we built would have collapsed. We had you on the way. We were terrified." Mara closed her eyes briefly. Terrified. The word still tasted bitter. "I lost my career," Mara continued, "my name, friends who crossed the street to avoid me. Doors closed before I even knocked." Daniel stared at her, horror dawning. "Mom, all those years you struggled, it was because of this." Mara smiled faintly. "Struggle teaches you what matters." Claire shook her head, backing away as if the truth itself might touch her. "You could have said something, you could have fought." "I did," Mara replied calmly, "but I was fighting alone." The silence that followed was thick with shame. Claire's mother crawled toward Mara, clutching at the hem of her dress. "We thought time would fix it, that the world would forget." The world did forget. Mara said, "Accept me." Claire swallowed hard. Her voice dropped, stripped of arrogance. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear I didn't." Mara studied her carefully. "No," she said, "you didn't want to." The words landed softly, but they cut deeper than any shout. Claire flinched. "You looked at me and saw something less." Mara continued, "Something easy to laugh at. That's how this begins. Every time." Daniel stepped forward, his eyes wet. "I should have defended you." Mara reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "You're learning now." Claire wiped her tears, desperation creeping into her voice. "I'm sorry, truly. I didn't know who you were." Mara tilted her head. "Who do you think I am?" Claire hesitated. Then, quietly, someone stronger than all of us. For the first time, Claire's apology wasn't about easing her own guilt. It was about recognition. But recognition didn't erase harm, it only named it. Mara exhaled slowly. "Kindness," she said, "shouldn't depend on knowing someone's story." Claire nodded, ashamed. That night, the daughter who had never known learned the cost of inherited comfort, and the woman she had mocked became a mirror she could no longer avoid. The truth had been spoken, and it demanded a reckoning. Morning light slipped quietly through the tall windows, revealing the wreckage of the night before tear-stained faces, sleepless eyes, and a truth that could not be folded away again. Mara sat at the dining table with her hands wrapped around a cup of untouched tea. She looked calm, not because she felt nothing, but because she had already survived the worst of it years ago. What remained now was clarity. Claire's parents stood before her like children awaiting judgment. "We'll tell the truth," Claire's father said hoarsely. "Publicly, we'll correct the record, whatever it takes." Mara met his gaze. "You should have done that when it mattered." He lowered his head. Daniel watched his mother closely, seeing her, not as the woman who scraped by, not as someone to be protected, but as someone who had carried an unbearable weight with grace. He was only now beginning to understand. Claire stepped forward, her voice trembling. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want to try to become better than the person I was to you." Mara studied her for a long moment. Then she stood. "I don't need revenge," Mara said softly. "Life already gave me its harshest lesson." She walked toward the window, sunlight tracing the lines on her face, lines earned, not hidden. "But here is what I need," she continued. "Honesty, respect, and the certainty that my son will never have to apologize for where he comes from." Daniel straightened. "He won't," he said firmly. Mara turned back to Claire. If you marry my son, it will not be because you feel guilty. It will be because you understand dignity." Claire nodded, tears falling freely. "I do now." That was Mara's revenge, not humiliation, not cruelty. It was forcing the truth into the open and standing untouched by it. Weeks later, the story surfaced, quietly at first, then louder. Records were corrected, names restored. Whispers turned into apologies, some too late, some sincere. Mara never demanded recognition, but it found her anyway. At the engagement celebration, Mara stood beside her son, not hidden, not diminished. People listened when she spoke. Claire stood beside her with humility, not superiority. When someone remarked on Mara's strength, she only smiled. Strength hadn't come from winning. It came from enduring without becoming cruel. As Mara watched Daniel laugh, free and proud, she realized something at last. The world hadn't defeated her. It had revealed her, and grace quiet, unwavering grace had been the sharpest revenge of all.